Glen has amazing credentials. Board Director and Chief Executive of companies including Clemenger, BBDO, Saatchi and Leo Burnett. Please welcome the one and only presenting at Soul Sessions, Australian Glen Campbell!
I guess tonight what we're going to do is, what I'm going to try and do is talk to you about this whole idea of, you know, self-knowledge. And I'm going to take it from a business perspective first, right? So I'm going to sort of fall back to those advertising days when we'd spend a lot of time with clients and we'd go through this whole exercise. And we'd talk about the identity of their business and we'd talk about the brand. And we'd try and understand what that brand meant. And we'd explore the whole concept of what this company wanted to be, because at the end of the day, this company wants to be a brand, and agencies talk about brands. This company wants to be a brand because what they want to do is sell more stuff, right? And brands do that better than anything else. And I think a brand is this, right? I think a brand is quite simply a promise. Brands have a promise. They promise something. And when you have a promise that is understood, and then you deliver that promise, or exceed the delivery of that promise, then you've probably got a successful brand. And tonight, if everybody's interested in exploring the depths of being a personal brand, then you as an individual who is looking to be a personal brand, maybe you should start thinking about the precepts of that and what defines that and what does it mean. Because, you know, you can always tell, my view is you can always judge people not by what they say and brands not by what they say, but what they do. And one of the biggest issues with brands is, in my experience, has always been that the promise and the intent is not always what the customer experiences. There's a disconnect, isn't there? And so we talk about this in the terms of being a brand yourself, a personal brand. So therefore, don't you need to understand who you are first, make your promise, and then deliver on it? In fact, why don't you just over-deliver? Because when you over-deliver, people get emotionally connected with you, don't they? And my view of branding is really developing just powerful emotional connections with people. Consistently. Powerful, positive, emotional connections. Emotional connectivity is a powerful thing. Positive emotional connectivity, especially when it's consistent and when it's fresh and when it's exciting and when it's seductive and when it's enjoyable. That, to me, is what a brand, a powerful brand, is all about. Whether it's a business or whether it's a personal brand. It really doesn't make any difference, does it? But you've really got to understand what that brand is. And this whole idea of sort of emotional connectivity of, you know, people being, you know, we're all just bags of emotional energy, aren't we really? And, you know, the psychological theory out there is quite simple. We act and behave in response to emotional stimulus. And then what we do is we use the rational mind to substantiate why we've done what we've done. And purchasing behaviour is the same, isn't it? Because we go out there and we buy things emotionally. We are emotional energy. We're emotional creatures. Thank God for that. It's good. There's nothing wrong with it. But we act emotionally as a result of just about everything. And we buy emotionally as well. So, you know, one of my favourite stories was I started working in advertising at Clemenger in Brisbane. And the boss is John Garnsey, an absolutely lovely man. God rest his soul now. And John gets me into his big corner office, you know, it's beautiful. And he says to me, "So mate, do you understand how this game works?" And I said, "Well, I think so." He said, "Well, let me help you out a little bit." He said, "Come over here, come over here, come over here." So he takes me over to the window and we look down. I said, "See that car down there, that Mercedes-Benz?" And I said, "Yep." He said, "It's my car." He said, "Why do you reckon I bought that car?" And I said, "Well, I don't know, John." And he said, "I'll tell you why I bought that car. Because that car is the finest in German engineering. That car has a safety cell. Right, if there's a crash, more often than not, I'll survive. If there's a bad crash, I'll probably survive. It's German engineering at its best. It's got a 7-speaker sound system. It's got ABS braking. It's got side intrusion beams. This car has got everything. It's got more shoulder room. It's got leg room. It's got bigger boot space." And I went, "Right." And he said, That's not why I bought the car. I bought the car because I look goddamn good in that car. So I bought the car because that car makes a statement about me. When I drive down the street in that car, people are going to look at me and they're going to go, that man is successful. Right? This is making a statement about who I am. I bought this car purely based on, for emotional reasons. Then the reason I understand all that stuff is because after I bought the car, I read the brochure. So I could tell people like you I didn't buy that car because I look good. And he told me, he created a very valuable understanding for me in this business. And he said, you know, Glenn, one of the big insights is you've got to understand about this business is that people buy emotionally. So we've got to appeal to them emotionally. A connection. We want to create an emotional connection and a response from people. And if we can do that better than anybody else, if we can promise that that's the way they'll feel, and then we can deliver it, we win. We will outdo our competitors and we'll create better brands. Now, over 20 years in this business, you know, working for a lot of great agencies and a lot of great pieces of business, and a lot of businesses are not so great, I found that all of my clients were asking the same three questions. Same three questions, always the same three questions. How do I attract more clients? How do I get them to pay what I want them to pay? Right? I don't want a discount. I don't want to sell terms. I don't want to do any of those things. I just want them to pay what I want them to pay, which I think is fair. And then how do I keep them engaged and loyal? They're the three questions. So think about it from your personal branding point of view. Think about it. How do I get more opportunities? How do I get them to pay me what I'm worth? Right? The salary or whatever it is. Right? If you're in a business for yourself, you want to charge people, you want to be paid for what you're worth. And then how do I keep them engaged? And so you look at these three questions and you say, well, you know, how do you do that if you sort of don't understand who you are? How do you engage with somebody in a meaningful way? My sort of view was if people really had a good handle on who they are and had thought about it and who they're comfortable with being, you know, being themselves. This I know me and I am going to be me. And I'm happy with me. I'm clear with me. I understand, I have self-knowledge about me. And so therefore, my view is, I'm going to be true to myself, whether you like it or not, whether you like me or not. And it's just too bad if you don't, because I'm clear about who I am. And that's important to me. The interesting thing, going back to a business perspective, because I'm going to jump back and forward here from business to you, back to business again, and you'll see that they're pretty much both the same anyway. It doesn't really matter, because businesses, you know, here's another big insight for you. The most successful businesses create brands that are more like people. You do the brand personification exercise, right? If this brand were a person, if this brand were a car, if this brand were an animal, if this brand were a celebrity, if this brand were a real person that was sitting beside me here at this board meeting, who would this brand be? Would it be male or female? Or, you know, what sort of personality characteristics would it have? What would the values be? You know, what would it be wearing? How would it be talking? What kind of education would it have had? You know, let's understand. People connect and emotionally connect with people better than objects, don't they? You know, there's this emotional interplay with people. So brands want to be like people. And the other side of the insight is if the most successful brands are more like the most successful people, then the most successful people are probably more like the most successful brands, aren't they? You know, I know a lot of people who are very well branded. They're very clear. You know, you don't read about Hugh Jackman in the gossip column, do you? Because this guy's pretty clear about who he is. So is Richard Branson. So is Oprah. Oprah knows who her brand is. She's clear. I mean, all you've got to do is go to a website. You can find out what her values are. You can find out what her core purpose is in life. It's all there. She talks about it all the time. And people ask. They want to know. What makes this woman tick? Where are her boundaries? What's her definition? Who is she? Because I'm sort of like to know who she is so I can find out a way of sort of working out who I am. Unfortunately, a lot of people trade into trying to be Oprah. Well, you can't be Oprah because Oprah's Oprah. What you really need to do is just be yourself instead of trying to be somebody else. But people are looking for that. They're looking for they're looking for guidance. They're looking for the road. They're looking for the signposts, aren't they? They're trying to find out how do I get there? How do I find out who I am? What is it? And I'll get back to this business, the difference between what I feel the difference between a business and a brand is, or a person and a brand. And businesses that aren't brands, that are just businesses, they're unfocused. Sort of all over the place. Brands have clarity. Businesses focus on process. And if you're a person, you'd be focused on being busy. Brands focus on the customer. Businesses focus on profit. Brands focus on people. Businesses struggle to get customers, right? It's a struggle to get customers. Great brands, the customers find you. Businesses struggle to have customer loyalty. They've got this massive churn factor all the time. People are moving in and moving out of their business all the time. It's a massive issue. Brands don't have that problem. They have massive customer loyalty. Businesses have constant margin erosion. Got a discount, right? Have a look in the newspaper right now. Everybody's selling the farm. Right? Harvey Norman. Man, this guy doesn't sell stuff, he sells finance. So his entire business revolves around how far out he can go with trading terms. And you know, the more further out that he goes, the more I think he's desperate. This is distress advertising. This guy's hasn't got a brand. What he's doing is selling terms. He's actually selling GE credit cards or something like that. So, you know, and I look at other great brands like department stores where there's just sale after sale after sale after sale after sale. 20% off, 30% off. One of my friends is one of the top guys in one of those big department store businesses. And he said something to me the other day that I thought was just unbelievably enlightening. He said, Glenn, the new 20% is 40%. And I went, really? And he said, yeah. He said, it's distressing, buddy. He said, we've just got to keep giving margin away to get customers in. And he said, the big concern we've got is the new 40% is going to be 60% because they won't come in. Unless we're on sale, they just won't come in. And I said, but don't you see what you're doing? You're educating people to come in only when you're on sale. They won't shop there unless you're on sale, buddy. So you're your own worst enemy. Go back to your brand and start creating some value around who you are and what you stand for and the experience that people will have when they come in. Because the experience is not there anymore and you're just selling discounts. So in tough times, people reckon they've got to default to something else. And people do the same thing who don't understand who they are. They're defaulting to somebody or something else. You know, in psychological terms, you know, if Alistair were here, he'd say you're defaulting to what your parents told you or imprinted on you when you were a kid. So all that imprinting and all that stuff that you learn, you default back. And that's who you are. Well, it's not. It absolutely is not who you are. You are who you want to be and who you get clear about. So my question, understanding what the difference between a business and a brand is are you a business or are you a brand? Think about it for a minute. Do you exemplify the characteristics of a business in the way you run your life, or do you exemplify more the characteristics of a brand? Some of the best brands I've worked with are brands that just have this laser focus. They just know who they are. They're very clear about what the big picture is. They're clear about their vision. They have a vision. They've thought about it. They've articulated what it is, this big vision. And you know, I've got to tell you, most great brands don't have a big vision that revolves around how much money they're going to make. It's not even of interest to them. There's something else at play. There's something bigger, something more important, something more motivating than that, isn't there? And they're clear about their purpose. They're just clear about it. Purpose. One of my favourite purpose statements is for a brand, Walt Disney. And their purpose is to make people happy. This is why they get up in the morning. Now, it doesn't matter what business they're in, whether they're in the movie business or the soft plush toy business, or whether they're in the business of creating games or theme parks. That's not the business they're in. They're in the business of happiness. They're in the happiness business. They're clear about their personality and their attitude and their beliefs. They've worked it out. So if great brands spend the time going through the process of working that out, and if you want to be a personal brand, why shouldn't you do it as well? Why shouldn't you spend the time? I mean, after all, it is you, right? What's more important to you than you? I would suggest to you nothing. Because if you don't get you right, what else are you going to get right? Brands do orchestrate their own destiny according to who they are. I could name you several brands who act like that right now. They don't ask their customers' opinion. They really know what they're about. Working on the Woolworths Supermarkets brands when I was at Burnett, and we went through this phase where, and let me state the ground rules. The share price for Woolworths is $3.87. I remember distinctly when we started this whole campaign. And we developed this new Fresh Food People campaign. And it was quite powerful stuff. And I was working with a guy by the name of Grant O'Brien at the time, and Grant, of course, now is going to be the CEO-elect in September, I believe. So Grant and I are working together, and we're trying to work out how we can make sure that what we promise as a brand, how we behave as a brand, that is the Woolworths Supermarket brand, the whole 120,000 staff agree to. We've got to get those guys on board as well. So we launched the Woolworths Supermarket campaign to 120,000 staff before we launched it to the market. Now, why did we do that? Because those people are the brand. They're the face of the brand, right? And every supermarket, everywhere, if those guys don't keep the promise of the brand, then the brand is disconnecting, isn't it? So, of course, we went out there to 120,000 people, and we got them to understand what the Fresh Food People is as a brand. And we did the whole roadshow and everything, and it was an amazing success. Of course, when we launched that brand, at that time, that brand was being very true to itself. That brand was making a promise. The staff and the customers understood what that promise was, and the brand kept the promise and over-delivered on the promise. In those days, this is the way it was. It over-delivered on the promise. So what happens? They crushed their competitors, amazingly successful, exponential growth. Share price 3.5 years later, $18 plus. Incredible brand success. Incredible brand success. Because of a couple of things. Everybody knew what the brand was. Everybody knew what the personality was, what the values were, what the purpose was, what the vision was for this supermarket chain. They got it. Unless brands consistently remain true to themselves and deliver their promise or exceed the delivery of their promise, then brands change, don't they? So brands, they could be up or they could be down. Just like people who aren't clear about who they are as a brand. When you're clear about yourself, you're in the zone, right? Yeah. When you're not clear about yourself, you're not. You're sort of confused. You're in this cloud. You don't know who you are, how you should be reacting to things. You don't know, somebody says something, should I be with you? Somebody, should I be with you? Who am I with? Well, don't be with anybody, be with yourself. And to be with yourself, you've got to be clear about yourself. Powerful brands are clear, they have clarity, and everybody gets it. So I'll give you another story. Powerful brand. So it's March 25th, 2010. George Street, Sydney. Right, there's a launch of a new product. A press release is sent out. A press release is sent out. No teaser campaign, no advertising campaign, a press release is sent out. There's a launch of a new product. So 50 hours out, people are lining up outside that store because they want that product. They don't care how much that product is. This product is not even a new product. It's a line extension product. It's the iPad 2. Not 1, 2. It's not a new brand. It's not a new product. It's not revolutionary. It's got a few new features. But this brand is so powerful that people are lining up for 50 hours out to get their hands on this thing. You ask them what it costs, they don't care. They don't know. They want it, they've got to have it. These people are amazingly, positively, emotionally connected with this brand. You think that I use the word love unadvisedly. They love this brand. They love the brand. People have brands they love, don't they? I mean, you've got to have at least a couple of brands in your life where you go, it's just not negotiable. I will not buy another brand. I cannot betray my relationship with that brand. It's my brand. Now, do you reckon these guys have got a powerful brand? Do you reckon they know who they are? Do you reckon they seduce? Do you reckon they excite? Do you reckon they inspire? Well, of course they do. People love this brand. If a company with 50,000 people can all march to the same values, can all believe in the same vision, can all have the same attitude to themselves and their customers. It's pretty powerful stuff, isn't it? But it's not easy to do. And what we're talking about tonight is brand you. Not brand 50,000 people, brand you. There's just one of you. How hard can it be? So then we go to the next thing, we go to the pretenders, right? So there's pretenders out there. And this is what I was talking about before. I was talking about businesses that have intent, that have developed their understanding of the brand, but there's a disconnect. Their intent and their promise is not translated into what people experience with them. You could have an intent about who you want to be, but unless you deliver it, unless the actions agree or are congruent with the intent, then you're in trouble, aren't you? You're not being true to yourself, so you don't really understand yourself. You're a little bit schizophrenic, or at least confused at best. Brand pretenders are everywhere. They're certainly more prolific than real brands. And people pretenders are certainly more prolific than real people brands, aren't they? Because when you hear people talk, then you see what they do, and it doesn't line up. You sort of go, well, you don't have a clue who you are, because you're actually doing something else and you're not being true to what you said to me. I just want to show you some visuals that'll sort of it'll start to bring all this stuff together and have you understand what I'm sort of doing, what I'm trying to do to give you a bit of a blueprint. And I'm not saying this is right and it's the absolute way it should be, but it's going to give you something to think about, some parameters maybe to think about. So this is a traditional model that I've developed for this brand heart approach. And I've got 3 steps in this model. The first step is understanding. It's the 4 C's, right? It's company, category, competitor and consumer. And this is just understanding the landscape, right, for brands. You've sort of got to go out there and know the game you're playing in, haven't you? You've got to know what's going on. And then there's the brand heart. And brand heart to me is heart. It's passion. This is what it's all about. It's what's the pulse? What's the beat? What makes your heart beat the strongest? Because it is about the heart. And there's some aspects of that. So we talk about attributes, personality, values, purpose and benefits. And I'll talk a bit more about these in a minute. Then of course we go to the other side, which is off the screen. But what we're talking about there is connection. And with brands we talk about what their product is, what their price is, what their place. It's the 7 Ps. Their packaging, their people, their processes and their promotion. So how does that look? And we're going to create some definition. So attributes are really, what's the makeup? It's those things that John Garnsey was talking about with his car. You know, it's got 7 airbags. It's got this, it's got that. They're features. They're the sort of what the makeup is. Then there's the benefits. It's what do people gain? What's in it for them? What are they going to get out of this? There's got to be a benefit, hasn't there? And most advertising today just talks about benefits. But it does it in a way that tries to emotionally connect you with the brand. Then there's the personality. It's like, well, how does this brand express itself? How do you express yourself? What are your personality traits? What's your tone and manner? What's your demeanour? How do you carry yourself? Isn't it important to know that stuff? I believe it is. Then there's your values. What are your essential tenets? What do you stand for? What do you hold dear? What's fundamental to you? Then, of course, there's the reason for being. What's my reason for being? Why do I get up in the morning? Then there's this resonating pulse, right? This thing in the middle. And traditional sort of advertising strategists sort of call this the DNA or the essence. I believe the resonating pulse is more powerful. What makes the heart beat the strongest? That's what connects. Hearts connect. So this is what an exercise we did when I was at Love for Tourism Tasmania. And we'll just go to two things, right? We'll go to the core values: warmth, authenticity, originality and innocence. So this is the values of this state, this island, in a tourism sense. What's their reason for being? Inspiring island experiences. What's their brand heart? Magical rejuvenation. So, you know, when we went down there and we wandered around, we just talked to people that were leaving the island after 10 days or so. We said, well, what do you feel? It's just magical. This place is magical. How do you feel? I just feel like I'm in touch with myself again. I feel like I'm in touch with the planet again. I feel like, you know, I've reconnected with something that's important to me. Let's look at another one, the Fin Review. So we showed this brand heart to all the journalists and all the employees and all the marketing guys and the management. They all looked at it and went, yep, that's us. You have nailed it. That's who we are. That's what we stand for. Then you look at the advertising. Of course, the advertising is a beautiful representation of this brand's attitude, this brand's personality, what this brand does, what's in it for you, what you get. This is our promise. The publication has just got to deliver, hasn't it? And the publication delivers. So let's look at a brand heart for a person, right? This is a personal brand. This is this guy's personal brand, Richard Branson. And you look at Richard and you just look at his attributes, right? Now, is this Richard? I think it's Richard. Suave, stylish, yet approachable, provocative, yet personal, embraces change, loves to dream, yet is grounded, solution-focused, lives to the fullest and for the moment, works hard and plays hard. What's his purpose? To make a difference in this world. I cannot tell you how many times I've read this guy where he said, I just want to make a difference in this world. That's why I get up in the morning. I want to make a difference in this world. He didn't say, I want to get up and be a billionaire. He said, I want to make a difference. And you know, you look at his Virgin brands. His Virgin brands are a mirror of the man, aren't they? This brand has taken his personality. But I'll tell you something. If this guy got hit by a truck tomorrow, that brand would go on, and as would that personality. Let's look at Oprah. Hardworking, unconventional, social and personal acceptance. These are her attributes. Intelligent, spiritual, moral, hopeful. She's a truth seeker. This is her attribute. This is just what makes her tick. What's her brand heart? Live your best life. You don't have to go too far or look too hard to work out what this woman stands for and what her personal brand is. What I've shown you today is one way of looking at who you are and what defines you. Because it'd be good to know, wouldn't it? You can achieve an approach to developing your way to overcome the challenges in the world and to be your best self just by understanding yourself, can't you? And the other key point is, if you look at brands like Apple, and you look at brands who have got 50,000 people, and you look at brands like Virgin, who've got 18,000 people, and you look at brands like Woolworths Supermarkets, who's got 120,000 people, imagine the amount of work that's got to be done to get those brands to be powerful brands, to get those brands to keep their promise, to get those brands to understand, all in their employees and their customers to understand who they are so that you can connect with somebody, you can understand who they are. And the point is, isn't it so much easier to just do one person rather than 120,000? My view is it's a whole lot easier. And here's my money-back guarantee for tonight, right? This is my money-back guarantee. My money-back guarantee is this. If you do the work, you'll get the results. If you do nothing, you'll get nothing. Has everybody heard of Sun Tzu, who wrote The Art of War? Sun Tzu said, if ignorant in both your enemy and yourself, you are certain to be in peril. So my answer is, don't be ignorant, especially of yourself. Thank you.